Dr. Randall, the Soul Doctor, author of Soul Doctoring, Heal Yourself, Heal the Planet, shares her 40 years of experience as a cross-cultural practitioner, medical futurist, and expert in 20 different modalities of healing, along with amazing interviews with some of the leading minds in medicine and big thinkers in all walks of life. The stories of our lives are the woven energies of our soul's paths. They feed and ignite the spiritual light that nourishes the universal soul, the one mind, the cosmic consciousness where we all come together. This podcast is going to be a deep dive into the personal stories of people who have made significant contributions to the planet. What formed them? What moved them to become these leaders and innovators that inspire us so? Hi, Glenn.
Hello, so good seeing you.
I've worked with you for over a year, and this is the first time I've actually laid eyes on you. So this is quite a thrill for me. And it's just fabulous. I can't believe it. You're across the country. You're in, where are you?
Amherst. I'm in Amherst, Massachusetts, doing the show downtown Amherst, Massachusetts.
Nice. I like it when you do shows outside, like when you went to the Love Fest. And
yes, that was remarkable.
So I just want to introduce you, if I may.
Please.
Glenn is just an amazing person. He's unlike any other person you'll ever meet in your life. He's a one-of-a-kind person. He truly is. He's an internationally known coach for speaking and development. He's an entrepreneur, radio host. I know him mostly as a radio host and a coach for people learning to speak publicly on the radio. And I'll tell you a little bit about my own story about that. He's a coach also in self-renewal, and he has more than 3 decades of experience. He's also a master at distilling ideas into practical applications, but applications where he takes a tack that is entirely unique. No one else takes the kind of tack and thought processes that he's always amazed me that way. He is on a mission to discover what's possible beyond the possible. And I like that because I like going beyond the beyond myself. He also is an expert in relational intelligence and relationships, actually. He demonstrates how we can all engage in a deeper experience of life through relationship. As a matter of fact, I think he thinks relationship is the core of all existence. I mean, would you say that's true, Glenn? Something like that?
Yes.
At the heart of his work is about helping you to discover your message and to tap your most authentic self while connecting with the people in your life on the deepest level. I can honestly say Glenn did that for me. I'm a speaker going way back because I'm a doctor and 40 years of experience. And of course, I was a professor at UCLA, so I've given many, many speeches to thousands of individuals. But never did I learn how to speak like Glenn taught me how to speak. And he taught me by actually more like by being with him and working with him. Because in that year on the radio show, it was with a panel. So first of all, you have to know how to play well with others, which I'm pretty good at, although sometimes he questions me. But if something's very passionate to me, I do have to say my truth. But what he taught me mostly is improv. And that is such a key thing, when you're speaking, because a lot of times you sit there in the audience and you wonder, like, how does that person just stand there and talk? I could never do that. Well, guess what? Now I can do that because you taught me how to tap into what I just read about you, that special part of me. And of course, I'm very knowledgeable. I'm like trained in 20 different modalities, 40 years. And so now that I feel comfortable tapping into my own self, like who I am, the soul doctor, I have no problem. I just follow the trains in my head and it happens kind of the way you do it. So thank you so much for being my teacher, my mentor, my leader. Because I mean, you really moved me from there to here. And now
I want to say, Madalena, this has been the healing treatment of the day. I thank you deeply, profoundly. Thank you.
So Glenn Brooks, ladies and gentlemen. My teacher, my friend, my family. So tell me, let's start from the beginning, Glenn. You were born there, or you were there on the East Coast somewhere?
I was born in Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan. Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan. In 1957, my mother, Dorothy, I guess her main name was Denmark. She for a while it was Berkowitz. I was adopted, by the way, when I was about under 1. I didn't know I was adopted, not by my mother, but by my father. And I didn't find it out till I was 11. I was listening on the door of a psychologist's office, and it was like, oh my God, that kind of makes sense, but I'm still startled. It's startling for me. So I grew up in Long Island, and I always had a sense that there had to be a bigger world. I felt I was missing something in Long Island. I didn't know what it was. But as time went on, I didn't wake up to an alarm clock. I woke up to my father clearing his throat. He always had sinus conditions. And he always took Dristan, or antihistamines. And so I kind of grew up. I went to a high school I absolutely couldn't stand. I was about, 50 feet away from the high school I really wanted to go to. And I guess I began to question, conform, wonder what was really happening on some level. And I did feel a little like an outsider. And I guess on some level, I could see the light in people's eyes. I had a sense that something was happening. And into in my middle teens, I started to change my physical diet. I read an article on sugar. I realized they were feeding me absolute junk in high school. And I felt my mind was prisoned in classroom, and my body was prisoned in classroom as well. I kind of felt I didn't know where to go. So I changed my diet. I started to... That's
pretty amazing that you were in high school or junior high school, or where were you?
High school.
That you... And that's also way ahead of your time to understand diet and sugar, which... we holistic doctors all preach now, diet is poison, diet is the thing to avoid. In terms of sugar's poison, that you got it then. You understood it at that point. Did you understand it because it made you feel poorly, or you just, how did you come to know that?
I picked up a magazine called Health and Strength by Bob Hoffman. And I read an article on sugar, and I realized no one had ever told me anything about sugar. And I guess I was craving something different. I had bad sinus headaches, and I don't know, something about it caught me. And before you know it, I went to the bookstore and I started reading Let's Eat Right to Keep Fit by Adele Davis. And I started to realize, oh my God, no one ever told me this stuff. And I asked my mother one day why my father had sinus headaches, and she said it ran in the family. And I guess I started to wonder. And I started going to the bookstore, and I kept going to not just bookstores, but health food stores. And then I met this model. By the way, it's such a blessing being with you. I realize I'm so at home with you. I realize do you think
that recognizing the diet and the, the look in people's eyes, was that the seed? Was that the seed for Vibrant Living?
Yeah. Yes.
Which it was the name of the radio show that we shared, by the way.
Yeah.
And that's your thing.
Still. Yeah. We have Vibrant Living on the stage. We have Vibrant Connections Beyond Dating to Relating. Yeah, relationalness. I think relationalness might be one of the most significant things to really allow our soulness to come into life. I think sometimes we get distracted just by our souliness. And I think my journey with you, Madeleine, it's a beautiful thing how I met you, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Can you tell us that? I love that story.
It's a wild story. I had gone through what I would call a relational tsunami. I was apart from my wife, and I was living on my own. And over the years, I had done shows on conscious eyesight and vision. And I met this holistic eye doctor. And of course, when I met him, I kind of felt, oh my God, I'm going to be at home now. This is going to be all okay. What happened was I was in the shower one day, and I noticed there was a change in my eyesight, my left eye. I felt a tremendous sense of anxiety and terror. I got out of the shower, and I remember being out of the shower, and I thought maybe I should go back in the shower and just exhale and breathe because I was so scared. And then I talked to this eye doctor. I got in the office scale, and he asked me this question, which terrified me. He asked me a question I felt he had no business asking me. And the question was, why is there blood near your retina? Now, I went into shock when he asked me that. Mark told me he was going to refer me to a retina specialist. And he says, I'll call you in the morning. And some sense in me felt I had to reach out and find something that could help me that wasn't local. In terms of the retina specialist, I called the office, and I was so scared. I just wanted the woman at the other end of the line to reassure me. So I'd ask her, like, hey, do you really help people over here? And I couldn't get my handle on what it was. So I went online, and I was looking for someone that was like a medicinal doctor, a healing doctor. And also I did have a frame of reference because I had a scientist named Dr. Valerie Hunt that helped me for many years. She was like my mentor and my angel, my aunt. And I called your office. On week 2, I called your office. Now, I had many days of shaking in the morning. I was shaking when I'd wake up. And I was shaking on many levels. I was scared about my eye. I was scared about, I just didn't understand what was happening. I really had no idea. When I would look at traffic lights for my left eye, it looked totally different. I couldn't see the light at the time. And I realized my whole system was terrified. So I called your office. I spoke to Tony, who I didn't know at all. And I just called out of the blue. Like, I was like a shot in the dark from the miraculous. Like, here I am. You have no idea who I am, but I would like to speak to Dr. Randall. And maybe it took a couple more days, and I was driving home, and my whole day was like, I didn't know what was going to happen. I'm also a tennis player, and this impacted my tennis game. And I was scared. So I'm driving home, and Tony gets on the phone. She goes, Dr. Randall could speak to you. And I'm like, right now? And she said, yes. I said, I'm available right now. So I drive to the convenience store, Cumberland Farms. There's people in front of the store. I see a dumpster. Like, I go to park and I see the dumpster. I'm thinking, that's my home. That's where I'm going. And then you get on the line. And I'm just like, would you please just listen? And you said, yes, you love me. And I just said, look, I'm really, really scared. Something's going on. You asked me some questions. I told you that I knew Dr. Valerie Hunt. You told me she was there with us. And I was like, oh my God, she's here. And I guess that was the beginning. And that beginning was always the beginning of very soulful, genuine conversations where I was on my knees. I was really scared to drive to the stoplight. I didn't know if I was going to be able to see the stoplight. I just really didn't know. And I didn't know what I didn't know. And I had no idea how to access something different. But I feel you appeared, and I just loved you. I was like, and you told me you loved me. And then I think within 2 days, you sent me this text that said, I'm going to be your healer. I don't know if you asked me permission or you just asserted it. I'm your healer. Just accept this. I'm from Nebraska.
No, actually, we talked for 3 hours.
Okay, we had the consultation.
And I asked you, did you want me to be your healer? Did I have permission to be your healer?
I just want to say that I love my son so, so much, Michael Brooks. And I feel him here with us, Gail, Madeleine. Madeleine's Dr. Randall's spiritual name, Madeleine. It took me 3 months to say Modeline. I was so happy when I said Modeline. Modeline.
It's actually my middle name, my grandmother's name, and my granddaughter's name.
What's a spiritual name?
My friends call me that.
My son passed away July 20th, Michael Brooks, and it's been such a different planet, and I love him so much. And this, how much can we say about invisible things that are? My whole life is a different planet. I feel so so moved that I'm here with you today, because you've been there with me through you've been there with me through many nights, many mornings, and I've called you at 3 a.m. when I felt I needed an exorcism. I called you when I felt I needed nutritional advice. I called you because I felt, oh my God, I got the virus. I called you, and you've always treated me like a soul and not a body with a data pack attached to me. You've always been so kind to me.
Oh, thank you.
You're right, too.
Well, that's what we're here for. I understand. We're here to care about other souls. It's just we got to get other people on the planet to remember that.
It's so beautiful.
That's I love that story. And so tell me how we talked a little bit about, we went actually from your childhood to that being the seed of Vibrant Living, but tell me, how did Vibrant Living actually come into fruition? Did you know about it? How did it come to you? What was the vision, and how has it grown since it originally came?
Wow. Well, when I was probably in my teens, and I picked up a book called The Miracle of Fasting by Paul Bragg, who saved Jack LaLanne's life. And Paul Bragg was a very charismatic a very charismatic human being. And he had a picture of himself in Hawaii. And it was this picture that, actually, there was a picture of him, and there's another picture in his book of a man heading towards the graveyard and then heading towards the sunshine. And I had some sense that I want to head towards the sunshine. Or as Jack LaLanne would say to me, most people make it dying, not a living. I really wanted to find out what living was. And I read Paul Bragg's book, and he was going to come to New York. I had acne at the time. I was about 18 or 19, but I knew I had to go see him. So I went to New York City, to the Roosevelt Hotel. I had acne. I was kind of very shy. And at the front desk, there was this big bouquet of flowers. And this guy named Eddie Mack, who is I think he was a Boston Brownie. The Boston Brownies are the people who swim in the winter when it's ice cold. I walked up. I did a lot of my life not knowing anyone. But when we feel this connection to the infinite, to the miraculous, the remarkable, we can move ahead. So I walked up to Eddie. I don't know how this happened, but he looked at me as an 18-year-old, and he said, "Why don't you go bring the flowers to Dr. Bragg?" So I went in the elevator. I got up the elevator. I knocked on the door, and Patricia Bragg opened the door. And in the backdrop, there was Paul Bragg, and he was bright. And he walked up to me, and Patricia hugged me in her own way, but Paul walked up to me, and he looked down, and he says, most people die, and they don't even know it. And he goes, it's really about living, and not, you never pay attention to chronological age. He said he's chronological in age, but he's in his 50s. He's very alive. And he told me not to get into that habit of dying, that dying was a bad habit.
That's so true. So true, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I have this program now, Glenn, and I think I told you about it, Adding Years and Growing Younger. And people ask me, why do you look so young? How do you do that? What's your secret? And, I said, it's really not how old you are. It's how young you are. And a lot of it is attitude. A lot of it is love. A lot of it is caring for others. When you like Dr. Bragg, you said he was bright. You can tell a person that practices this because the light comes out of them. You can see it.
So isn't that funny? Because that's exactly what Annie Rosenfarb, which is another story for another moment. But Dr. Annie Rosenfarb was my new partner. I met him in conjunction with you. And he said to me, basically what he said to me, the whole premise of his work isn't to be bright, to not let conventional eye doctors lead you down a path of darkness.
Mm-hmm.
It happens all the time, he was telling me. And when I actually did my recent dialogue with him, it was like an exorcism. Because I still had some of those graven images left over from all that crap. And so you were a point of light that was beyond the linear. I trusted it. I felt it before. And I knew I was home with you. And it's amazing because now I could do a spin in the air. All the things I thought I was losing, they were like shadows. They were graven images. And to have another soul that I could relate to and just be so real with you as a human being. And we have that. We have it.
Didn't we find a root cause? I mean, wasn't there some event in your...
Yes.
What was that? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. What happened was when I was about 12 or so, Joey Callan, my neighbor, and I used to walk to the drive-in movie theater. And this particular day, there was an eclipse. And I had heard somewhere that if you were walking in an eclipse or an eclipse, it could possibly burn your retina. Now, when I came back home, I was all of a sudden so worried about my eye and my eyes. And I asked my mother to take me to the eye doctor. And of course, through the years, I had some extra sensitivity. I always had a little extra sensitivity and worry around my eyes. And I was fascinated with natural eyesight. I was fascinated with that conventional eye doctors. That's it. They put eyeglasses on. That's it. You know, my grandparents, I never saw my grandmother stand up. My grandmother had rheumatoid arthritis, and she couldn't stand up. And my grandfather had really bad diabetes. Mm-hmm. And I think I just started questioning if life could go in a different way. And I picked up this magazine called Health and Strength, and I read an article on sugar, and I know what it was. I actually got invited to do a show on WSB in Stony Brook, Long Island. And I talked about that we learn mechanics, we learn how to get a degree, but we have no idea how to live vibrantly. That was something we don't learn. We don't have that in our education. Mm-hmm. So I started to talk about that on WSB, and I started a club at WSB called the Feeling Great Club. And I started to share with the students some exercises, things they could do to begin to cultivate vibrancy. Because often we give away so much, we drain a lot of energy because we don't have the practices or awarenesses. We mechanically push through things and get credit, but we have no idea how to really develop this. So when I began the classes, the students would tell me they had a lot less stress. They felt better. I started to practice exercises like gazing. I would have them sit and gaze, and gazing just brings us into life.
Tell us about that gazing.
What's that?
Tell me about gazing.
Well, I went to the Eureka.
Teach me how to gaze.
Okay, I'll teach you how to gaze. All right. So let's just see if you could. Could you see my eyes? Well.
Yes.
Okay. So why don't we make contact? So gazing's not staring. Let's just allow ourselves to meet each other through our seeing.
So gazing is done with another person.
It's done with another person. And the idea is to allow yourself to just be there and make this contact that's so unusual. You know, we have a lot of non-being contact in a day and very little contact that's really meaningful. I'm there. Like I see your eyes are very... There's a quality in your eyes that are very beautiful. It's this quality that we meet, and we're really there. And we let that be the signature, the thing that matters. It changes our rhythm. I want to acknowledge again my beautiful son, Michael Brooks. So as Michael made his transition July 20th, I'm seeing if I could kind of also put my hand over my heart to make contact with Michael and make contact with you. It's our life's really about contact. It's really about not just thinking about some point in time when we get to vibrancy. It's living vibrancy now and feeling it now.
Yeah, I want to get to Michael. I want you to talk about Michael, but right now I want to stay on these early tools that you developed, these early techniques that you shared. And so you shared them on this radio show. What the name of the radio show again, please?
Vibrant Living Network.
Oh, no, the one where you first went on, you said.
Oh, when I first went on, I went on a guest on WUSB in Stony Brook, fairly close to where I grew up in Long Island, was where I grew up mostly.
What year was that? When are we
That
talking
was
about?
God. That was the late '70s, early '80s. Maybe like God. That had to be 78, 79, something like
Wow.
that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
And
I went on.
there wasn't anything else out there like that.
No,
Mm-hmm.
no. It was, and yet I felt like, wow, we're at a school where the students are already. See, here's the thing, right? We get taught to do, have, and be. So we do, we have, and then we be. But really, it's about being.
Yes.
It's being, right? It's not about the doing.
Right.
So what began to happen was I was very influenced by a couple of major medical doctors. I had read their books early. Dr. Brew Joy. I read Joy's Way, and he was saying things in the book that I had a direct experience of. And so one of my direct experiences is that our outer mind and the noise of our outer mind distracts us from being and distracts us from soul and wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So Brujoy was doing these 10-day retreats, and I knew how to connect with him.
Are we still in the 70s here?
Yeah, still in the 70s. Yeah, I must have read that book. That's an early healing book.
Mm-hmm.
And I read it, and I knew from my being that what he was sharing about, I was in touch with. And so when I read that language, so there's a language, right? There's a language of healing. There's a language of soul. And this is why relationalness matters. There's too much focus on it. I think there's too much focus on things like empowerment.
So what is the language? Can you tell me the words?
Well, the language is a language of sensation. It's a language of awareness. It's a language of sensing.
So this is your language, or this is in that
Well, this
book?
is the language that I'm beginning to get in touch with.
Right. No, I know that, but it wasn't in that book.
Well, what was in that book that was significant for me was he was talking how most of us, our whole schooling, our whole cultural experience is to fill our heads with thoughts, right? To get busy up here, to get our degree, and to. But this has nothing to do. This has very little to do with healing. Healing is really this experience of being in the moment and being in the relational moment, so that we're not just all about ourselves. We're really about this relationship that we're cultivating, a vibrancy. And that vibrancy is also a language. And it's a language that touches people in a way that their eyes begin to glow, they breathe differently. We're beginning to make contact. And I realized that most of the life around me, there was very little contact. It was like it seemed like life is like people do a whole bunch of stuff. They do, but there's not a vibrant moment.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you discover vibrancy from? How do you live into vibrancy as a life?
Mm-hmm.
And that really matters.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I was very lucky because I was sort of a spirit child and went out and found my horse friends and my spirit friends in the cornfields and things. So I understood that just sort of naturally, but most people don't, and they're taught actually not to do that, to, like you said, be doers and thinkers, and they're not feelers necessarily. So that's very interesting. So it seems like you had a notion for it, and then you started teaching it very early on in the 70s. And then where did it go from there, Glenn?
Where it went from there is I met a model. I met Tony DeMarco, who actually passed away in LA fairly recently. I met Tony DeMarco when I was about 18 or 19. And she had written a book called The California Way to Natural Beauty. And she talked about how her cosmetics poisoned her. I met her at a show. She gave me her phone number. I went over to see her at her apartment. And I felt I could design a class for her, because I started to feel, I had a feel for this vibrant language and how to communicate it. And as we get in touch with vibrancy, we don't have to compete anymore. Forget about competing. Stop competing. So I went over, I put a class together for my two friends, Vincenza and Lucia, and we spent the day with Tony. And I realized it was one of the most satisfying things. Like, in my culture around me, the conversation was, get another job. But I already had something that was bubbling and alive that I wanted to share with people. So I did the class with Tony. I knew Paul Bragg was coming to town, Dr. Paul Bragg. I love Paul Bragg because of this other language, the vibrant language. I knew that I began to trust that I had a relationship with people that didn't need to be figured out. I didn't need to prove myself. And when I would get around people like you, the relationship was already there. I didn't need, it was like, it's just there. Relationship's here. So I went to see Bragg. I got to the hotel. I said the other day that I had acne and I was scared. I walked in the hotel. It was a Roosevelt Hotel. And this man had this big buffet of flowers for Paul Bragg. I walked up. I introduced myself. And he said, you take the flowers and bring them up to Dr. Bragg's room. And I did. I went up the elevator, and his daughter opened the door. And before you know it, Paul Bragg walked towards me. But when he walked towards me, it was like I could feel his aura come to me. It wasn't a theory. I could feel his aura. I could feel, oh my God, a human being that's alive is coming to me. And I felt he's my family. And he told me 3 things that day. He said, don't get into the habit of aging. Aging's a bad habit. Don't get into the habit of aging. Don't listen to people that are your critics. That a lot of what people say to you is their own thought viruses. Don't get into people's thought viruses. Trust this other wave. And he told me to live my mission and live your mission as if your life depends on it, because it does. And then I did another show at the time called The Joel Martin Show. Joel Martin had a big show on Long Island. He had all the...
Is this a radio show?
The radio show. I did his TV show too. So I moved to Washington, D.C. I had met Donna at that time. And Michael was almost going to be born.
Donna's your wife.
Donna was the mother of Michael. My beloved Michael Brooks Show. Check out the Michael Brooks Show. So I know what it is. I go to Washington, D.C. I go to a New Year's event, right? I have no literature, none. And I watch this man on New Year's Eve do the hula dance. And I realize he's communicating in the energy of vibrancy. And I realize there's something about this man that's wonderful. The next day, New Year's Day, I have a flat tire. I'm in D.C. I have no money. Nothing's happened. I have no money. I have a flat tire. I meet this man. His name's Robert. And I tell him I'm teaching a workshop, a class called How to Nurture Yourself and How to Nurture Others. How to Nurture Yourself and Nurture Others. He pays me for the workshop right there on the street. And he typesets my first flyer. Right then, and he comes to my class. And within a short period of time, I meet an incredible mentor, Noreen Diamond. She's the librarian at the Divine Science Church, and she treats me like I'm her relative. So I'm starting to learn that when you're in life, you don't need to take care of all these details. You need to trust the vibrancy and the vibrant intelligence that's in you. It's in them as well. You don't got to be a script anymore. You could be that vibrancy and let it lead you. And then the oneness of life, the vibrancy of life is there. When I met you, I just reached out and I said, there's a vibrant doctor. There's someone that's going to open the doorway. And this is why I have the Vibrant Living Challenge, because I want people to practice this trust as a way of life. Because as soon as we kind of get away from the trust and we get into the counterfeit, we lose touch with it. Then we become
It reminds me of my concept that I teach, which I call oneness or one mind or one God or cosmic consciousness. But you were tapping into it from something you call vibrancy, because God is in all of us, right? Yeah, and you recognize that. So from the 70s, and you were on these shows, and you met Paul Bragg and Doreen. And when did you get your own show? What
happens next? I do another show. I'm in DC, and I hear about the psychiatrist. And this psychiatrist, his name's Bob Shaw. And he's teaching this course called the Mastery Course. This course is for people that are doctors and lawyers. And the Mastery Course is so why is it that some people produce mastery and a lot of people don't even come close to mastery? But there's certain people, when you meet them, they know how to produce mastery in your life. They know how to. And so Bob traveled the world, and I knew I was supposed to be part of the Mastery Course. So I went to this get-together, and they accepted me as a partner. I was a partner, and for 7 days and nights, we explored what is it that produces mastery, and what are the obstacles to mastery. And so one of the big obstacles to mastery is the assumptions or the presuppositions that we have about things. Like, for instance, you hear a person has anorexia and you're a professional and you say, well, that takes 7 years, or this is a presupposition. It gets in the way. You need to be able to work with people from a state of being where you take them in. So what's possible beyond possible? When I work with clients, what's possible beyond possible? So I started out in radio. I'm trying to think of my first radio show. One of the first shows that I did, I approached a very large station. I played them a demo tape, I think called diet is a 4-letter word. Diet imprison people. And the owner of the station told me his wife was on a diet and she was suffering. And he invited me to come in and start doing a show. So I started doing the show. It was a very large station. It covers several states. And I started to really enjoy this vibrant conversation because we don't have vibrant conversations. Jack LaLanne had said it so well. We make a dime, we don't make a living. So my language would be, we don't make a vibrancy. We don't cultivate a vibrancy. So obviously, having the most alive son on the planet, Michael Brooks, Michael stretched me. I love being around my son. My son asked me soul questions. My son was one of the most brilliant. Was the most brilliant person I've ever met. He asked me questions. He questioned schooling. He questioned how to make the world, how to be a cosmopolitan citizen. Early on, he was already thinking about being a cosmopolitan citizen. He was already thinking, like, how do we get beyond just the USA? How do we have the world work in a way that's reverent? How do we go beyond just being a left wing person? How do we ask these questions? And when he was 17, one day he said to me, "Dad, I really want to I'm going to become a global leader." And I realized my Michael was thinking on a whole different level. He was thinking about, his brain was brilliant, but there was soul. He cared about people on the planet. And it came from a radical inquiry. Very young. He wrote a book at 27, which is all about, it was called The Buddha's Playbook. And he already was thinking, how would Buddha live? How would Buddha inquire? And what are the practices? So I started this show, this very large show, and I realized I wanted to go beyond the interview. I wanted to have dialogues with people. I felt already people's conversations were too quick and too superficial. Mm-hmm. And they needed to go deeper. So that's how I met people. I would meet authors. Dr. Richard Moss, he wrote a book early on called The I That Is We. The I That Is We. Mm-hmm. I began a series with Richard, and there was nothing. The authors would tell me they didn't have this experience of being able to go really deep because already they were homogenizing interviews. So I began to meet people that I was moved by. Dr. Bernie Siegel, Dr. Norm Shealy, mm-hmm. Tony DeMarco, the model. And then I realized my mission is to bring people's vibrant messages to life. And I didn't know that I had that capacity, but what people would tell me, they would start to come more alive, more vibrancy. Mm-hmm. And then I started to work with authors and publishers, but then I realized a lot of time the publishers didn't really know how to communicate or bring out the messages of vibrant authors. They just didn't, because it wasn't in the culture.
Mm-hmm.
So I got really interested in this, and I became personal friends with and very close with these people. I got to meet Dr. Bronner, Dr. Bronner's soap. He was quite a character. I guess I started doing my show, and I started meeting with people that were speakers and authors, and I just wanted to bring this conversation. And Michael was homeschooled at the time, and I thought, oh my God, just being around a homeschooled child, so much brilliance, so much wonder, and so much chaos. And Michael opened up. I'm writing a book on Michael now, and there's so much wonder and splendor. And my daughter, she's incredibly alive. She's incredible. It's easy to brag about them. They mirror so much soul to me and so much wonder. And so at a certain point, I realized what we're missing is relationalness, the ability to deepen relationships as a soul and intellectual path, how to really go beyond our own separate reality, and that conclusions and assumptions are the poison of relationship. We must drop. That's why I call you an anthropologist. I felt when I met you, understand that you gotta go beyond the culture. You gotta help people connect with life, the tree of life, that they can't stay in their culture with their conclusions and assumptions and become become vibrant.
Well, I've been to so many different cultures, and what is primo about that, the Native American, the South American, the Amazon, Africa, is their sense of connectedness to each other and connectedness to the earth. And if you have that sense of connectedness, you're vibrant.
Yes.
Well,
that's what I felt from you. I felt when we met on that long distance phone call that day, which I call Miracle Down by the Dumpster, which went on to like 169 days of ceremony, was you cared, and you shared with me. You shared your spiritual sight. You acknowledged me at the level of beingness. So seeing this is the most valuable thing. When you see people, you don't dehumanize them. Yeah. When you see people, you don't take their dignity away. And you're a person that I knew, I could feel that even though I was compromised, I felt so underneath it. You gave me a spark of healing because you recognized me. You didn't let my circumstance or my own terror. And then me and you developed kinship and humor. Mm-hmm. What more could I add? And you kinship and humor, and then you reinforced that something was happening and healing, and to not get concerned about the symptoms. Mm-hmm. And yet at the same time you addressed me. You truly addressed me as a whole soul and whole being. And I loved you for it, and I trusted you.
Thank you. So you developed this sense, this knowing, call it a knowing, about the state of vibrancy. You started programming, you started teaching people. When did you develop the Vibrant Living program, per se? I mean, I can see it was an evolution from the beginning, but because I was part of it recently, very recently, on Home Times Radio, but I think it existed before that.
Well, I met the owner. My intent wasn't really to have a show; it was to have a whole network. And when I met you, it became clear to me that we had something of depth. That I only wanted to do things of depth. I've been doing radio and conversations and dialogues. I would say it came from my being. Initially, I started before there was coaching. I was a life enrichment consultant. One of my significant clients was a client named Richard Wampeldorf, and Richard came to see me. Richard Wampeldorf, and he always paid me, but he would sometimes leave early. And I began to learn it's not about the time, it's about the listening and the value. Mm-hmm. And so basically I started to do seminars and teach classes. Like I taught the Feeling Great Club. And it was through my listening with people that there's a listening to the listening. That when you begin to listen to the listening, there's a vibrant story that each person has. Mm-hmm. And when they get in touch with it, they begin to move and breathe differently. Right. And that was how I built the Vibrant Living Network. I was on all over the country. I was in syndication twice. I worked close with Radio TV Interview Report, My work was going out to thousands of people. I wasn't a businessman. I really lived this as a mission,
Mm-hmm.
and a vision. And now what's happening is I have more people who want to bring this with me to a new level. And I have a weekend course called Own the Stage.
Mm-hmm.
How do you own the stage with integrity and vibrancy? And my son, Michael, he blossomed that in his life. He moved more people around the world. And I've never met anybody who's touched so many people like Michael. And I feel like it was all in our soul relationship that he pushed off me. He challenged me. And the love was so, so deep.
Well, don't undersell the power.
That?
Don't undersell the power of Glenn Brooks and how many people you've impacted.
Thank you.
How many people, you've influenced, not just directly, but with your broadcasts and your radio shows. And
the first broadcast, you remind me, I did a broadcast on WHMP with Ram Dass. And I was so excited about that broadcast. I remember driving into the mountains because I knew it was going to play on a certain day.
Mm-hmm.
And I listened to this conversation with Ram Dass, and it was all of a sudden, it was like these people that I had read, now I'm exploring with vibrancy. So I'm listening to Ram Dass sitting in this back road, and I feel like, oh my God, this is my life. My life is to have dialogues and bring this to another level and bring people to environments where they could explore their vibrant message and see it and cultivate it in others. So it's a relational community.
I love that. And how did Ram Dass respond to this? Was he totally there?
Totally there. Totally warm, humble, funny, very acknowledging of his own neurosis, and that beingness was a reality in our life. And we could get 5 PhDs if we don't know how to breathe and love someone on the street. Well, who are we? So he was someone that he was a Harvard professor, and he used to joke that you could be a Harvard professor. All you got to do is carry a copy of Time magazine and carry a copy of the New York Times. But that has nothing to do with beingness.
Mm-hmm.
How do you live a life where you're available to soul and you could be there? I mean, same thing. I met John Kabat-Zinn when he started that program. Mm-hmm. I was sitting there one day with John at the stress reduction program at UMass in Worcester, and he told me he had a terrible panic attack. And I respected him. I thought, oh my God, he's honest. Like I didn't expect that.
Did you tell him breathe?
Well, it's funny you say that because I was like, I didn't like John when I first met him, but I felt like, wow, he was so real. He would say to us, don't tell me about your pleasant meditation experiences. Tell us what challenged you. Tell me where you sweated the night before.
Wow.
Our group was we was one of the first groups. It was powerful.
It was real.
My daughter was under 1 year old. My daughter's 30 now. I did the course 30 years ago.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. That's so amazing. So now, tell us what's going on now.
What's going on now is I'm expanding the Vibrant Living Network. I'm working with people who want to be speakers. They want to communicate their vibrant message. They want to 3 times a year. I'm putting together the Vibrant Living Summit,
mm-hmm.
and I'm going to help people cultivate their talks. I'm working with people that want to be retreat leaders, and they're authors that want to bring their work to another level. Because I started to meet authors. See, when I got into radio, I met a lot of authors, and they would tell me all their stories about how their book wasn't edited correctly, all the things they showed me. And I began to have dialogues with them, and they would tell me I helped them bring out new aspects of their work.
Mm-hmm.
So the Vibrant Living Network, I'm going to start holding open auditions, and I'll be bringing on about 30 people and helping them cultivate their message and having these summits. I'm also right now in the middle of training to play some tennis exhibition matches and raise some money for some charities or anything my son finds valuable. I know my son's last thing was around world hunger. So I want to contribute to helping people around hunger. I guess being around people that want to be vibrant speakers and writers. I'm starting a writing group called Awakened Imagination. I love working with people who want to be. I'm starting a new network. I'm starting a new channel called Vibrant Connections. Vibrant Connections, beyond dating to relating. Dating is one of the biggest barriers to relating. So I want to help people develop those deep, intimate relationships.
Okay, so the thing I've really been burning to ask you is, where do you see this going from here? How do you see this? I mean, I think you're a game changer. I think you have the potential possibility to continue to do that and not just change lives, but change the world. What do you see?
Thank you. There's something so beautiful about being seen and being seen deeper. And I so love that and treasure that. And you are so beautiful at this. The questions and the way you ask your questions, Madeleine, is very deep and so beautiful. I'm touched deeply by it. Thank you. To have an international community of people that are committed to vibrancy as a way of life, to have an international community of vibrant speakers, vibrant authors that come to our events, our vibrant speaking summits, to help people understand what it is to be an experiential journalist, so that when you journal about something, it has deep meaning and you experience it. You're not just writing about it from a limited part of your brain. I also want to introduce people. I want to introduce people to this man his name is Ken Honda. I think Ken Honda has a way of communicating about vibrant prosperity that's profound. Because we got to start to, how do we create this vibrant planet so that competition and brutalness and dehumanizing, we accept that nonsense.
Yeah.
So I want to be around other leaders and communicate this message in print, in dialogue, and to see how this also transfers into medicine. You know, if every corner had like a Gail Randall, it'd be a beautiful thing. So I also want to deepen this inquiry. I mean, the thing that I'm honored sometimes when I meet doctors or pioneers, I ask them questions and they say, that question, no one asked me that question before. So I want to keep cultivating an environment of intellectual curiosity and warm relationships so we go beyond this whole competitive thing.
Yeah.
You know, this whole thing about competition is allowing products like Roundup and poisonous stuff on the planet. It doesn't make any sense as human beings that we commit such atrocities in the workplace and call that business. So I'm interested in another model of business and people bringing their being and their heart into business and making it better and more conscious so that when you get a product, you actually know that someone actually cares about the product. They're not trying to trick you by calling it organic and fancy. What's real?
Mm-hmm.
And what moves us so that we actually care about getting products and services that have that depth, that vibrant integrity. Mm-hmm. I love the word vibrant.
All right. Well, I agree with you. There needs to be more spirit in medicine. There needs to be more spirit in business. And we need to have competition is about running our own race. I mean, I'm always in competition with myself, but it doesn't matter what this guy's doing or this guy's doing. I mean, other than I care about this guy and this guy. I care. My passion tells me where to go and my heart tells me where to go. And I've never thought about it any other way. And I think you're like that. As a matter of fact, I know you're like that. And so we share that. And you have words for it. I have words for it. But, you know, when we work together, I see you and you see me and, you know, our gods recognize each other.
I'm so happy you're having Dr. Andy Rosenfarb on. Me and Andy are starting a new program called Vibrant Vision Mastery. I love Andy so much. I met Andy with you. Dr. Norm and I are doing Vibrant Longevity. And I'm going to bring some people that I feel that I'm going to keep building community. Mm-hmm. I'm going to play these exhibition tennis matches. I want to bring the wonder and healing power of the dog world to more people and have dogs be treated better. You're the only other person that would really understand the healing power of Rottweilers. We did a show together called 3 Rottweilers, 3 Healings. You're someone, that's why I consider you're not a person that's thinking about nutritional supplements. You're a person that's thinking what touches and moves someone so that the soul comes alive and the body comes alive. And what are the things that feed that?
Right. And that's I also do, know that in order for the body to heal optimally, we need optimal nutritional supplements that have been made with love and that are organic and that are truly sourced in the highest way. So I have my own line. I do believe in that. But I want to know about you. I want to know one last question, two last questions, maybe. If you could say one thing, if the whole world was listening, what would you want them to know?
It's such a deep question. I guess in light of my son, Michael Brooks, transitioning, I would just say that gift that Michael's given me and keeps giving me and has given all these other people, I guess just the gift of, oh my God, being able to realize someone as a soul that you feel so close with and close to the divine, that don't ever take for granted a moment don't ever take for granted a moment when you can love and touch someone. Don't think it's another moment. Take that person right now and feel their hands and sit down with them. Michael left very quickly, and I encourage you to drop to your knees and feel that reverence of relationship. So I would just say it's my son Michael, and yes, my beautiful daughter Alicia, that I'm discovering a new love with. And I want to say you, Madeleine, I don't believe how much you've meant to me on so many levels. So my message is, don't ever take a relationship for granted. Make it a regular point to live through forgiveness and blessings. And be humble. Be humble. Be humble. I want to learn humbleness, and I want to allow the closeness in my life and the trust to blossom in people beyond what I've ever known.
Beautiful. Thank you, Glenn.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining me. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for being my teacher. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. I love you so much, Madeleine.
Thank you. I love you too.
Thank you.
All right. We'll talk soon, okay?
Thank you. God bless you.
Bye-bye.